Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 14 kicks off in just a couple of days, and I have 5 of the top stacks on this very short slate. It's only a 10-game slate because of the 6 teams that are on bye week this week. Not that like those teams that are on bye would have been in top stacks this week. You're talking about like the Falcons, the Packers, the Colts, the Saints, the Commanders, and the Bears. None of those are top stacks any single week. So I'm shocked that we have as many really good value and plus upside options for a video like this on only a 10-game slate. So I'm excited about this slate. It looks like a fun one. There is one particular game that we're going to have to kind of look at for most of our fantasy goodness this week. I'm looking at you, Detroit and Minnesota. So if you take a second, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, and leave me a comment down below with a stack that you like that is not included, that is not playing in Detroit this week. Give me your favorite stack on this 10-game slate. So make it a 9-game slate. Tell me which one that you like in the comments, and let's go.
He's a legend.
The Week 14 Smiz Gang Listener League has 3,500 spots in it. We got to fill it by the time it kicks off, or it's probably going to get smaller in the weeks to come. $10 entry fee, 3 max. It's not in the lobby. The only way to get in is go to smizzle.tv/links. On that link tree, you can find links to everything that I do and the Listener League. You can follow me on Instagram.
He's a legend.
You can follow me on Twitch and sub on Twitch like Jay Blue just did for 23 months. As well as everything else that I do. Best Buys is also out on ESPN Plus. The link to that also in the link tree. So go to smizzle.tv/links and take part in the top best #1 tournament that exists on DraftKings. I'll shout out the top 10 winners on the Fantasy Football channel on Monday in the Week 14 recap video next week. Top stack of the week is going to be Jared Goff. I mean, look, Minnesota is a really good football team. What are they, 10-2 right now? But like, they are underdogs to the 5-7 Lions. Was not expecting that. It's also the highest totaled game on the weekend at 53. And if you isolate to the 10 games on the main slate, it is by far the highest totaled game. The Chargers on Sunday night playing against the Dolphins is 52 or 52.5, but that we can't play that game. So there's not many other places to go. The next highest totaled game is 47. And it's a massive drop. 6 points is a massive drop off in terms of totals. There's a lot of blowout games on this slate. So like, usually for a game to ceiling, you want to have high scoring, you want to have close competitive, you want up and down, you know, like a track meet in the fourth quarters, at the end of the second quarter, you want that witching hour type stuff. But if all the games are solved and everybody slows it down, because we have, let's see, the Bills are 9-point favorites, the Bengals are 6-point favorites, the Eagles are 7-point favorites, the Steelers are 5-point favorites, Chiefs are 9-point favorites. It's a lot of games and passing offenses with really good stacks that may not get there. This game is essentially a pick 'em. I think the Lions are favored by 1 or 2 at home. So looking at Jared Goff and who you can use with him, you're gonna use Amon-Ra St. Brown in pretty much all your Jared Goff stacks, unless you're fading due to injury, because he is an automatic at this point. 35+% of the market share expected coming in. 100-yard bonus, very much in play every week. He has seen way more red zone targets the last 2 weeks than he had seen the previous 5 weeks. So an uptick in terms of touchdown expectation, as well as volume, catches. That's the easiest predictor. Until he's over 8,500, he is still a value on DraftKings. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, solid value. Jameson Williams, not going to play a lot of snaps. They are very, very much going to ease this kid back in. They know what they have with him. They're going to get him out there for some snaps. Wouldn't be shocked to see him like on the other side of a long pass play that they might take a shot to him, but I'm not expecting over like 20% of the snaps. DJ Chark has played a ton recently. 11 targets in the last 2 games. Looked really good last week. Still only 4,300. And a revenge game on the other side of this. You know, we got a revenge game coming tight end. I don't want any of these tight ends. DeAndre Swift also back to 20 opportunities in this one. I mentioned a revenge game. Kirk Cousins on the other side. We're going to play Kirk Cousins too. He projects very well. 16.9 points. Everywhere you look, his projection is like 20 points on the weekend. So if we're going with him, I mentioned a revenge game. TJ Hawkinson coming back to Detroit. 6 targets in each of his last 2 games, but the 3 games prior since that trade, 9, 10, and 9 targets in those games. The way that Detroit played Minnesota the first time they played each other back in week 3, you know, was to not allow Justin Jefferson to do anything. 6 targets, 3 catches, no love, 4.4. It's not because Okuda shut it, because everybody's going to say that immediately. Oh, yeah, he got shut down by the cornerback. he was bracketed. They gave him the Calvin Johnson coverage. We're like, no, we got 2 guys on him at all times, no space, never getting open, make someone else beat you, which was the way that they played it. So Kirk Cousins is going to be in those lineups. Obviously, Hawkinson is a viable play as well. And if we look back at the week 3 game, 6 catches on 8 targets for Adam Thielen and a touchdown, 18 fantasy points. KJ Osborne in that week 3 game, 8 targets, 5 catches, 1 touchdown. They did not allow him to do anything. Dalvin Cook in that game in week 3, 17 carries, no targets. I'm not saying that you should stack him with Cousins. Like, this would probably be my stacking group for this game in particular, because I think Hawkinson's going to have a big day. I think they're going to try and do the same thing and force them to beat them somewhere else without Justin Jefferson. But also, I don't think that Minnesota is going to acquiesce and just say, oh, well, we're just going to let them take Justin Jefferson out of the play and we'll just deal with it and throw the ball only to Thielen and Osborne. They're going to game plan and try to get the ball more in their hands, but I could see an 8+ target game for TJ Hawkinson. Let's head over to Underdog Fantasy, because why not? Now, let's just do one for this game. 265.5 passing yards for Jared Goff. I'm going to go higher than that because Minnesota has allowed 325+ passing yards to 6 different quarterbacks this year, and 3 of those guys were bad. It was like, God, I forget who it was. Like Mac Jones was one of them. It's not a murderer's row. It's really ugly. Let's go over 82. Should I do receiving yards or receptions, guys? You want receiving yards or receptions? We're going over one of these for Amon-Ra. I'm going to go receiving yards because he can get there in 1 as opposed to taking a million. Let's go over 23 receiving yards for KJ Osborne and over 27.5 passing yards for Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go with that 4. You can use promo code ALSMIZZLE. That's ALSMIZZLE. If it's your first deposit to the site, you will receive up to $100 deposit bonus on that first deposit to the site. Just use that promo code. All one word, ALSMIZZLE. I'll enter that for $50 to win $500, and we'll move on with the top stacks video. Joe Burrow, one of the top stacks once again this week. Now look, Narrative Street says that he owns Kansas City, 30 points last week, but Cleveland is 4-0 against Joe Burrow in his short career, averaging 24.7 fantasy points per game, DraftKings points per game. Much better in games where Jamar Chase is on the field. Yeah, he had the one big game against Pittsburgh, right, where he threw for 355 and 4 touchdowns without Jamar, but it's just easier to have him go everywhere else, right? It's easier to have Jamar Chase on the field because of what else it opens up. Just having Jamar out there forces defense. He's a really good value at 7,900. Now, like, he's the contrarian value because everybody's going to Amon-Ra St. Brown and everybody's going to pay up at 9,000 to get to Justin Jefferson. So Jamar Chase's percentage is going to be lower than it should be on a week like this because you know that he can be a slate winning guy, a slate breaking guy. 36 points back in week 7, 35 points in week 6, 31 points, 32 points against Pittsburgh. Like, he's the solid play. T. Higgins, also a solid play. We know what he can do with or without Jamar. He can get those ceiling games without Jamar. He also has ceiling games with Jamar in play because of the single coverage that he sees. Tyler Boyd is he's the contrarian play. Obviously, the main stacks are going to be between those two. But his biggest games on the year have come when Jamar was on the field, and he usually comes in less than 10%. So if you wanted to get different and not just have the Chase, Higgins, Burrow stack, easy to get different to Tyler Boyd. We have Hurst, who is listed as doubtful right now for this weekend. He was only 3,200. So we've got Mitchell Wilcox, Devin Asiasi, walking in his Devin Asiasis at 2,500. I'm not big confidence on any of these tight ends. I just think more targets flow to these guys. It's going to be kind of a crapshoot unless we get word of which one is going to play more snaps in the absence of Hurst if Hurst does not play. So I would probably confine my stacks to this triple right here, the obvious triple, and then you're going to bring it back with somebody on Cleveland, whether it's going to be road Amari Cooper, whether it's going to be DPJ, or if you wanted to go with the running backs, because I believe that on Cincinnati, Joe Mixon is trending towards playing, and I think that he is going to be the chalkier play at running back because 6,900 is just not enough for the volume that should be incoming against the Cleveland defense. It doesn't stop running back. So this stack projects as a good value and also a bit contrarian off of all the stacks that are going to happen in Detroit. Josh Allen's going to be tough to pay up for, so he becomes a contrarian stack as well, but a really high value one, as we know that he is averaging 27 DraftKings points per game. We know that he is the most likely quarterback on any week to 30-point plus, which puts us in that game-winning, tournament-winning area. 30 points plus is exactly what you're looking for from any quarterback any week that you are double stacking. So if we plug Josh Allen into a lineup, I feel like you have to tie Steph Diggs to him, right? 100 yards per game, that bonus on average hitting for you. 10 touchdowns on the year, 91 receptions, the highest targeted player that he has, and it's not even close, because everybody else on this team, whether it's Gabe Davis, who has seen more targets recently but has not been able to cash in on them, at least not in any meaningful way since the week 10 game against Minnesota. He is a full-on, everybody else on this team is a full-on boom or bust wide receiver. So 21 points, 35 points, everything else is pretty meh except for a couple of mid-teens points plays, but you're going to include him. Isaiah McKenzie has seen better volume recently with 15 targets in the last 2, but also only that 2 games over 20 fantasy points on the entire season. At tight end, Dawson Knox, who was clearly going to be a regression candidate in 2022 after scoring so many touchdowns on so little volume, only has 2 games in the double digits this year, and he's 3,800 because he is tied to Josh Allen. And then at running back, we don't know which direction it's going to go, because are we going to jump back to the 20% of snaps for James Cook, who saw 6 and 5 targets the last 2 weeks? Week 13 was the first week that he saw over 23 snaps in a game. Like, he does not get a lot of snaps, and then last week 20 opportunities. I'm not sure that that's going to be in that range. Or can you tie Devin Singletary, who previously had been very good in the passing game, but recently no more than 2 targets in any game for the last 4 weeks? We don't know. Are they phasing out Devin Singletary to go to James Cook, or is this a 1-game anomaly from week 13? A lot of unknown there. Probably going to stick to this group, but more than likely, if I'm going to stack Josh Allen multiple times, I'm going to do it with just Diggs. If I'm going to double stack him, it's going to be cycling through these guys wherever you can. Bring it back with somebody on the Jets. There's multiple value options on the Jets. But if you're going to build single entry, I'm fine with you single stacking Josh Allen and Steph Diggs and hitting value somewhere else in those limited field tournaments where double stacking is not as much of a necessity as it is to win larger field tournaments. But it's a good way to get contrarian because it's going to hold you away from the guys in those first games. Geno Smith squares off against Carolina, averaging 20.6 fantasy points per game. And if you look at his last 4 games, he has been over 20 points per game in all of them, averaging closer to 24 fantasy points per game than his season average. So he's been outperforming recently. Ken Walker is still questionable for the weekend, which could mean more throwing because the backups behind Ken Walker cannot sustain having... They're not 20 carry a game backs. They're not pound between the tackles sort of backs. They're more pass catching backs. Guys like DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, depending on Ken Walker's status. Now, I want Ken Walker to be available because I want to play Ken Walker up against Carolina. I think he's going to be somewhat popular if he is cleared to go. But none of these guys who are still available project to be anything more than token carry guys with more targets, which means good things for Geno Smith and his pass attempts in this game. We also know that on the outside, the targets primarily go to 2 guys. DK Metcalf, who at 7,100 is a pay up to be contrarian option, not going to pop in very many optimizers, definitely not going to be in cash games, should be a sub 10% play this week. Tyler Lockett, who has been spectacular, 16.6 fantasy points per game, is sitting at 6,500, 12 targets last week. Has not really been consistent getting a boatload of targets, but has been very consistent at finding his way into the end zone, which has buoyed his fantasy points per game. Now, I don't want to have to depend on touchdowns, but when you got a guy who's scored a touchdown in the last 5 games, that is something to pay attention to, especially with like 55+% of the target market share going to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. If you wanted to, you could sprinkle in some Marquise Goodwin, but he's nothing more than a dart throw in tournaments. Noah Fant, exactly the same thing. A little bit better of a dart throw, but really just a dart throw to save you a little bit of money at tight end. I'd prefer Fant to Godwin, but I'm going to weight these guys more in my Geno Smith stacks than I am Noah Fant as a little bit of a contrarian play at tight end. Bringing it back is pretty easy. If you go with DJ Moore, you can go with the running back Foreman as well. Plenty of options on Carolina if you wanted to use a bring back play with your Geno Smith doubles. So that's it for the top 5 stacks. Tell me who you like down below that does not play in Detroit this week. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.